So we're back on this loader for the day. It's going to get sandblasted today. Not just ordinary sandblasting. It's going to be done with a water sandblasting unit. I've never seen it before. I think I've seen stuff on YouTube about them before, but there's going to be very little dust to no dust, which is great because sandblasting can be very, very messy. So a crowd called Concept Solutions contacted me January or February of this year and asked me had any project going on that might interest and letting them come down and do a bit of sandblasting, or would I be interested in maybe taking one of the units off them and trying it out for a while when I'm working on the TEF20, the quad, things like that. So I said leave it with me for a while because I wasn't sure. I was thinking of doing something on the slurry tanker, but then with the age of the slurry tanker, it'd be a very, very big project, and I don't think it'd be worth ever putting that kind of money into. It's fine the way it is. The TEF20, yeah, don't really want to sandblast it. I want to paint some parts of it and not others, and I hadn't really got my mind made up. But the one thing that did strike me was the loader. Small, simple project that they could do relatively quickly. So they agreed to do that, and they also said they'll bring down a couple of sandblasting units for me to look at when they're here. Now, I don't know whether I'll be buying any sandblasting unit myself, because I know they can be expensive and you really want to be using them constantly to make them pay for themselves, and I'd have to upgrade my compressor and things, but I'll look what they have and see what can be got. Anyway, that's what's going to happen today. Them guys will be here now in about a half an hour time on my invisible watch, and we'll take it from there. So here's Sam, he's just after finishing off doing the loader. He's going to talk you through all the bits of kits that he's using here. One thing for sure is there's a sight of pressure coming off that there. Nearly frightening you to hear the pressure that's coming off it. So what are we looking at here, Sam?
She's a bit different now to a diesel compressor. This is the Apply Verimount 350.
Okay.
She's a 350 CFM 10 bar machine. She runs off 1000 PTO. You need about 120 horsepower that way to run the machine. For sandblasting, it's almost overkill. It's got so much power behind it. Originally, we kind of designed it for the umbilical slurry market. The same size compressor in this, you'll be talking anywhere between 60 and 75,000 plus VAT for a diesel the same size. She works perfectly hand in hand with all of our dry blasting machines, but this is probably our the cream of the crop on the blasting machine side. We've had the Aquablaster now for 4 years. She does dry blasting, wet blasting, and then she also does just blow down. So the machine itself is exactly what a dry blasting machine would normally do, except it has a pneumatic water pump sitting right behind here in the box. So as you can see, you have your water line going into your IBC tank.
Yeah.
She suctions her own water up. She runs it through the pump, and then it brings it all the way down into the nozzle and injected straight into the nozzle. It drags a little bit of atmospheric air, so it vaporizes the water, so you don't get a stream of water falling out. You get more of a vapor, as you saw when we were blasting there. Dead man's trigger, very important bit. That's what stops and starts the machine, or depressurizes the machine when you're going. The Verimount then just dissipates all the air underneath the machine. So perfect, safe operation.
What are you looking at here? Because I know you have another one in here in the corner.
Yeah.
So this is
100 litre. They'll be middle of the range. In the Aquas we do 100 litre and 140. So this is 5 25 kilo bags.
So if you had that full now to the top, how long would you get sandblasting non-stop?
5 bags, you get about 40-45 minutes out.
Oh, all right, yeah.
We
do a lot in that.
Kind of 280 litres. So we do the big boys as well. There'll be more for static setups.
Yeah.
This is perfect kind of mobile. I'm a small man. Even when this is half full, you can still tilt it back and drag it around the yard, no problem.
Yeah.
All your hosing, everything is all connected on the same side. So you have your air line, your blast hose, your pneumatic for the dead man's trigger, and then your water line. And the best thing here is we have no water touching steel. But the machine itself is all dry on the inside. The water goes in through the pump and straight to the nozzle. It doesn't touch off metal.
You're using a rust inhibitor there as well on that loader?
Exactly. Very simple stuff. We call it solutite. You get it in 5 litre drums like that.
Yeah.
So you need 2 of these drums for an ABC tank, 100 to 1 ratio.
Yeah.
And she won't rust now for kind of 3 to 4 days. Very, very humid weather. If it was a bit rainy, you might say 2 or 3 days.
Yeah. But well, we're priming that tomorrow, so that'll be fine tomorrow.
No problem.
Yeah.
Also, you'd have no problems with paint with that. So let's say an awful lot of sprayers would be iffy about putting rust inhibitor on steel, especially what kind of results they're going to get with a 2-pack afterwards. So this rust inhibitor is acidic base, just stops the rust. It doesn't coat it or protect the steel. It's just stopping the rust from even forming.
You're saying also it's environmentally friendly?
Yeah, so we have a lot of our European counterparts and a lot of distributors in Europe. They don't like anything that can get into the environment. There's a lot more.
Well, nowadays everybody's kind of heading that direction.
But it's very, very restricted on the continent. So we are gone totally safe. Our glass is exactly the same. This is recycled windscreen glass, perfectly safe for blasting, dry blasting, wet blasting. And the rust inhibitor, you can dump it into the environment, there's no problems.
You're saying there's a rougher aggregate as well in that?
We do another one called, it's medium crushed glass. This is fine crushed glass. Fine, be perfect for kind of taking paint off steel. And then if you had anything harder like pitting on ploughs or anything you would have 20 or 30 years on, the medium crushed glass will reprofile the steel then.
And it's the kind of glass you get from bottle banks, things like that?
This is from scrapyards for the windscreens, and the other stuff is your Tesco bottle banks. So
that's unreal. Never knew that. Never knew that. So there's no sand. It's not actually sandblast. There's no sand at all.
Sand was gone in 1985, and
never knew that.
Use it in Ireland anymore at all.
So no robbing off the beach anymore.
No. And to be honest, like sand would be about 40% as effective as this. This is sharp. This is sharp stuff. So it cuts into the steel a lot better. Normal silica sand or building sand it just bounces off it and rolls. It's not great for taking back paint at all.
We'll have a wee look at it now and see how I come out. You can imagine the amount of time that it'd take with a wire wheel. You'd just never get into all the nooks and crannies down the bottom. You'd never would, like.
No. And like, of course, there's little bits and pieces where you're going to miss stuff. Like, let's say here, I don't want to go too close to the ram.
To the ram, yeah.
This is your undercoating that would have been from factory, the black.
Oh yeah.
So you can go over this as much as you want, and in places it's so welded into the steel almost that it won't come off. You can see here there's a little bit stuck on the gates here.
Yeah, but it's just
right.
It just washes straight off.
It's not hazardous.
It only went out there about 10 foot.
Yeah.
It hasn't went even beyond the tractor.
Exactly.
It seemed to be heavy. It fell down fairly quick.
Yeah. Yeah, that's why the water, it just kills the momentum of it. It doesn't ping off the steel and bounce away. It just kills it and goes to the ground. I know it's a bit of a messy setup, but I mean, with a power washer, you can wash it
look,
all
if
away.
you're in with the wire wheel, you can imagine the mess you'll have as well.
Exactly.
It has to come off. The paint has to come off.
Yeah.
End of the day. That's great.
The water also kills the hazardous stuff in the paint. So if you had lead paint or anything like that, because you're in the water, it's not in the air, then you're done.
Yeah.
You don't need an air-fed system, an expensive air-fed system.
Yeah. There's another system I asked him to take with him. It's more of a smaller, just the same thing again, just in a smaller size.
Yeah.
And I asked him to take it down to get a look at it. So this would be something a farmer would probably buy, or someone DIY-ist.
Exactly. The hosing system is exactly the same, bar the water. You have a blast hose and a red twin line with a dead man's handle. This will run off a fairly big single phase, recommended 3-phase around the 50 CFM or above.
Yeah.
If you're running it any lower, you won't have enough volume of air to start the machine going. If you're talking a 3-phase compressor or a small kind of 2 or 3 cylinder diesel turbine.
Yeah, diesel would probably be the way most people would go when they wouldn't have 3-phase.
Look, we're blessed in Ireland. We've plenty of rental companies for plant hire equipment. You're talking, if you wanted to rent one for the weekend, maybe 80 euros to rent a tow behind diesel for the weekend.
Yeah.
Get all your jobs lined up for that weekend. Get your blasting machine out. Rather than wasting time with an electric compressor, your own one.
Stopping and starting all the time.
You're also, the amount of money you'll spend on electricity, because it's running very, very hot all of the time.
Yeah.
Better off just go with the diesel.
And what size is that? That's
it's 40 litres.
40 litre, and that will
2.5 bags.
2.5 bags, and that'll get you what?
25 minutes.
Yeah.
25 minutes.
You do plenty in that time.
You would.
And it's the same hose kit, the oven that comes with that one there is exactly the same.
Pressure is going to be the same, so it's going to take it off the same speed. There's no difference in the pressure. It's only the volume that it is. So volume would be how much work you get done over time.
Do you want to tell people about your company now when you are here? When you did do a lot of work, I owe you to give yourselves a wee plug. So
yeah, so we're Applied Concepts. We're based in Burren, Offaly. I've been here about 1.5 years. I do national sales. Damien would be my manager. He does international. Our MD is Mark Clendenin. We started a company in 2007, originally building these machines from scratch from the very get-go. Then about 5 years ago, we went into the Verimount side of things. We saw agri, an awful lot of our customers were swapping over from tankers to umbilical systems. It was getting more and more popular, and there was a massive shortage of diesel compressors.
Yes, yes.
We filled the market there.
You do everything in-house then? You're building these all from scratch?
Our steel comes from Butlers in Roscommon. Absolutely everything is pressed, plasma cut, welded, then we shot blast everything, and then we powder coat it. So all these machines are powder coated. So you have 2 layers of green and a layer of lacquer over it. You know the abuse the diesel get on the farm.
Absolutely, without a doubt.
So.
It'll be used to push in silage, not Tim too, you know yourself.
Exactly. They're bumpers even.
Oh yeah.
I have lads putting light bars on the front of them.
Yeah, without a doubt. I well imagine. Yeah. What weight is something like that? I'd imagine that's very heavy. It looks extremely heavy.
100 kilos. She's designed for an A-frame.
Yeah.
So your A-frame would simply come in there, so if you have it in one spot in the yard, you come in, pick it up.
Away you go.
Front or rear PTO, the shaft runs straight through the centre. So depending if you want your man who's pumping to have it on the front of the tractor, or if you're a one-man show, you can have it just sitting there in the yard and have one tractor dedicated for it. A lot of our customers are just using it in front PTOs. You have slurry pump on the back. That's the yard tractor. That's the one thing.
Right, so we're back in the shed here. It's the morning after, and last night was a late one, but it's ready for paint. It just took me a long time last night to go around and just get some of the small bits and pieces that he wasn't able to get in at. Now there is little bits of red paint in there, but they're all sanded now. I was had to get in and sand them, put a rough coat on them so that the paint will adhere to them and not peel off, hopefully. But everything is fully now degreased again, rubbed down. There should be no handprints or anything on it. It's ready now for his coat of primer. Now, it's a week, well, it's nearly 10 days actually later, and the sandblasting, or aquablasting should call it, is now complete. One thing but I will mention before I go any further is something I will get asked, and it's something that people would be right to ask. When he first started to do that job, I stopped him. And I stopped him for the reason that he wasn't wearing a mask. Now, I know very little about sandblasting, but one thing I do know is it's a very dirty job and there's an awful dust behind it. And normally if you see videos on YouTube or wherever, you'll see people in all this protective gear and a vented mask and everything. I seen Sam setting up with a shield that's just for angle grinding and stuff like that. It did worry me. I had to stop him and ask him, have you no mask to put on, or what's the reason? Because if I think something is unsafe, knowingly it's unsafe, I won't show it on the channel. I had to say that to him. And he quite quickly stopped me and he laughed and he says, Adrian, this is dustless blasting. You're thinking of sandblasting. This is completely different. It's aquablasting. All the mists and stuff you're seeing that was rising from it was all water vapour. That's all that was. Now, I did notice on all the machinery that was around parked at the time, there was no dust on anything. No dust went in any of the sheds. Only the area around where he was working. I'll actually look at the APA videos on YouTube as well myself, just to make sure, and right enough there's loads of them on water blasting or glass blasting, whatever you want to call it, aqua blasting, and none of them are wearing a mask when they're using that system. So that's the reason I've been dustless. Just wanted to cover that to make sure that you know that I know about it and that all the safety precautions was taken when the job was being done. Them guys are at it a long time. Sam is a salesman. He doesn't do that job, and by the way, you can contact them and ask them to do that job you just seen there. They don't do that. They only sell the equipment themselves. Just came out here to show their own machines being used on this job so you guys could see what it is that they supply. And the loader, the following day, was painted and all done completely in 2 days, which was absolutely great. And without further ado, here it is. And it's Massy red, and it just looks the part. In here there's shadows and dark light. It's hard to show it properly. I would have been at this for days trying to get anywhere close to the quality them boys got done, and I wouldn't, even with paint stripper, I would have never got it anywhere close to the way they left it. A really good key to get a nice coat of primer on and the whole thing painted, and it just, yeah, it was made my life a lot easier. Now, a friend of mine painted this, Aidan. He's a local lad. He done the hedge cutter as well, and he mentioned to me when I was looking at buying the paint, I only ask him for his list and I go and get it. I know nothing about paint. That's not my speciality at all. He did say to me, get 2-pack paint, because the Massy paint that you'll buy will be single pack, and that's the reason a lot of them paints can fade quite quickly, especially on your loaders and stuff. Get a good quality 2-pack paint and you'll be much happier with it. So that's what we done. We got a 2-pack primer. It's called a wet and wet primer, and then with another etch primer on in front of that. Don't ask me for the life of me, but that's just what he told me. I have a bit of video footage of the thing being sprayed. I'll put it up here now as I'm talking. You'll see the red coat underneath, then you'll see the grey coat that went on top of it, and then we came along with 3 coats of actually 2-pack paint. Nearly sure there's 3 coats on it. I didn't film the thing being painted because I had a lot of things going on that day, and one of which I was spreading fertiliser and I was topping fields. Also, he ran out of material, which I had to go and get more primer, I think it was, or more hardener actually. That's what I had to go and get that evening. I was away for about an hour and a half getting that. So I just let him at it. And another thing as well is the fumes. 2K paint, you have to be so careful with it. He had all his protection gear on. He's at that now, 30 years plus, and knows his stuff inside out. And he said to me, Adrian, don't come anywhere near this shed when I'm at this, because you don't have the proper ventilation yourself. And I don't want to see anybody get sick from the fumes can come from that, because it's wild dangerous stuff. So I just let him be, let him paint away, and you guys know what spray painting looks like by now. So I'm happy to see it done. I didn't mask off these. I was going to, but they were well rusted, and I know they look well when you have the silver again, the red and all. Some people could be fussy like that, but I didn't bother. They were well rusted, and we cleaned them down. They were sandblasted already, and they'll probably rust even more. So I just said paint them. Once everything's sandblasted, just paint them and leave them at that. So that's what we did. I didn't want to touch it too much, because that paint, although it's on now a little more than a week, in fact, it's not gone hard yet. You can touch it, no problem whatsoever. But if you go to rub your hand back and forth, you'll see your print in the paint. So it's going to take a couple of weeks for that to fully cure. We're going to give it loads of time because we're not in any panic. So what's going to happen next? Well, the next thing, we're going to put our decals on it. We're not going to put the ones on it that were on it before. They were old and dated, and we don't want to go down that lane. We're going to bring it up to today's date and put the more modern Massy Ferguson stickers on it. It'll look well when it's done. All the proper stickers will go on. And our soft drive will go back on. The guard for it is over here. So it's all painted up as well. We stripped that down completely. And it's painted, ready to go back on. Our accumulators, we're not going to replace them yet because they're still working. So there's no reason to touch them. They're all painted black and they look a lot fresher when they go on. A new handle has to go on here. And everything else should be pretty much okay. A bit of wiring, camera has to go back on. Touching up things will not take very long to put it all back together again, and that's the loader complete. Now I know a lot of people did ask me, would you not go black with it, Adrian? I was that close to painting it black. Not black, but the real dark, quickie grey. And I'm glad I didn't. The red's a bit different and it'll match the tractor better and look well in the sun too. I know red is the worst colour, it can fade quicker than any colour, but the black fades too, don't forget, and can look very, I don't know, very dull of itself too when it goes that colour. So I'm glad, no, we stuck with the red. Now, the 54 is stuck in here in the corner. The hoods are gone in it. So it's a bit like something out of a shoot for Mad Max. You remember what I tell you? It was well scratched. It wasn't that really faded. The paintwork was still good on it, but it was very badly scratched. Plenty of dents in it. The decals were completely shattered on it. It seemed to got a lot of rubbing back and forth with the loader, so it was well scratched. Nothing would bring it back right. So just said, you know what? Take them with you. I can use with the tractor. Take your time, paint them up, and it'll just freshen the whole thing up. So that's really done. Done actually very big panels and not taking very long to do. So I'm expecting that all to come back now in the next couple of days. Not in any rush. The tractor works, park it in here. I can take it out top, park it back in here in case it rains. Not that rain will do it much harm, but it's better inside when it hasn't got its covers on. Anyway, I'm going on to the next job. Look, that's the guys from Applied Concepts. I have to say massive thanks to Sam and Damien that talked on the phone. Walked his backside off there. And by the way, that job took, when he got set up and all, 45 minutes. He had the whole thing blasted. You can't ask for much better than that. Anyway, big thanks to them guys. Thank you guys for watching. Until the next one, we'll talk to you again.